Welcome to the Scarlet Faithful podcast. I am your host and co-founder, Aaron Breitman. Thank you for joining me once again, coming to you right before the weekend, last weekend of April. This is Thursday night, a few hours after news broke of four-star commit Baye Ndongo decommitting from Rutgers. Thought it was a perfect opportunity to address the current roster, address recruitment. I try to pick my spots, and the world of college basketball recruiting right now is insane. It's changing by the hour, and I just wanted to wait until things. I did a podcast a couple of weeks ago, I believe, at this point, and I was waiting to do another one. And this is a perfect opportunity to talk about the class of 23 and just how the roster is shaping up for next season for Rutgers men's basketball. So I have a lot of thoughts. I'm a little fired up about it. There's just, there's a lot out there. Some of it's accurate, some of it's not. And hopefully I can provide a little bit of clarity here. And I think if you apply logic to certain rumors that are out there, it helps you kind of weed through some things that are being said. But listen, let's start with Baye Ndongo. I understand, listen, there's no denying that it's a blow. It hurts. I really think he has a ton of potential. He's a 6'10" kid that can play on the perimeter, that he's very good ball handling. He can create his own shot. He's not a traditional post player. I think he can, he's the kind of guy that could play the three in the NBA. Be a stretch four in college. I was really excited about him. And Pikel and the staff got in on him very early on in the process. And then, he just got better and better, and his recruitment picked up, and, he was committed to Rutgers in January. And was pretty rock solid. And then, of course, Karl Hobbs, the report broke April 12th that he was moving to Georgia Tech. I know people are kind of surprised, not understanding, why Hobbs left. I think that, it was just time, honestly. He's been with the staff since the beginning. He's got a long-term relationship with Pikel. Pikel was an assistant for him at George Washington. He provided great value for Rutgers when he first came to Rutgers with Pikel as, a veteran coach with lots of head coaching experience. And I think, that kind of role ran its course. And, Brandon Knight and TJ Thompson do the bulk of the recruiting. And, their roles are growing and growing. So I don't think it was, anything other than kind of a natural kind of mutual parting ways in terms of him being on staff. And, as luck would have it, the one recruit that he has coming in right now is Baye Ndongo. So, as much as NIL is prioritized, talked about, worried about, at the end of the day, it's all about relationships still. And it's not to say that, Knight, Thompson, Pikel didn't have good relationships with Ndongo, but Hobbs was the lead recruiter, and came in and just for anybody that's curious, Mawat Mag and Jaden Jones were kind of the most notable, I think, other recruits that Hobbs had brought in to Rutgers. So Ndongo, it happened right when, the signing period opened. From what I understand, he was still wanting to come to Rutgers or very open to the idea, and college basketball recruiting is complicated. And, there's, for lack of a better word, handlers involved, people in his camp. And, I think, I don't know, it's possible it was in the works before Hobbs left, or their eyes just kind of opened when he did leave, and he recently got bumped to a four-star recruit in the last couple months. His stock is up. And, my understanding is Georgetown reached out with Ed Cooley. And, obviously Georgia Tech, when they hired Hobbs, is going to ask about him. So, we'll see what happens. The thing about podcasts is they can get dated pretty quickly. But, I think at this point, it sounds like it's, very likely that Ndongo will follow Hobbs to Georgia Tech. We'll see. But it doesn't matter at this point. He's gone. He's not coming to Rutgers. It's certainly a blow, just in terms of how you, the time that the staff put into his recruitment, and also just how he figured into the plans. Granted, he's going to be a freshman next season, but he's a high, I think a high ceiling 4-star freshman, and certainly was going to have an opportunity to contribute next season. So now he's not there. You do have Gavin Griffiths, the highest rated recruit, at least in modern history, that Rutgers has ever signed. He signed in November, so he'll be on campus soon. We'll talk about him in a bit. And then you have Jamichael Davis, so the third recruit in the 2023 class who is also not signed. However, all indications are he will sign very soon. My understanding is that he is planning stuff with family in terms of the ceremony and kind of his official announcement. And I'm not sure the reason for the delay, but everything I'm being told is that he's going to sign. So again, he's linked to Ace Bailey, the number 3 recruit in the 2024 recruiting class nationally, and actively recruiting Dylan Harper, the number 2 recruit. We'll get into that in a bit. But I do think that, not only is Davis obviously tied to that relationship, but he's a player that had a very good senior year that I think had not been committed to Rutgers and not been tied to Bailey would have gotten, more interest out there and more opportunities. But he's been locked into Rutgers, and all indications are he's going to sign. He's a very athletic two-way guard. I think he's going to be a very good defender. And I think he's someone that, is going to develop offensively, but, can create his own shot. And I think he's an intriguing player. He's super athletic. And I hope that fans do not discount him as just kind of a throw-in for Ace Bailey, because I think he's going to be a contributor. Depending on how the roster ends up, I think he's, probably not going to play a lot this coming year, but who knows? Who knows? But I do think that, he is a player that the staff believes in. And it's important to get him signed just for that. So I think he will soon. So let's talk about the other possibilities. There's a lot of talk out there, a lot of rumors out there. Let's talk about Mackenzie Mgbako, top 10 national recruit, 2023, decommitted. As for there was a release from his national letter of intent from Duke recently. And he's a kid that played 3 years at Gil St. Bernard's for Mergen Sena, and then played the last year with Roselle Catholic. I can't think of 2 high school coaches that Steve Peichel has better relationships with than Mergen Sena and Dave Buff. That being said, again, college recruiting, basketball recruiting is complicated. I think if you look back at trends here for Peichel and who he tends to do the best with in terms of recruiting, it's when the families are the decision makers. When the families are the decision makers, Peichel wins a lot of those recruiting battles. When there's outside factors, meaning handlers, groups involved, or just other outside of the extended family, outside of the immediate family, talking outside of the mother and the father, it gets more complicated. Peichel has traditionally, obviously, he's very active in watching and tracking players on the AAU circuit, but he's not. If you look back, he's much more family, high school coach. That's who he does particularly well with, not the AAU scene, not the handler scene. Mackenzie Mgbako is the family is intimately involved. But, at this point, I would say NIL is certainly a major factor. And I know that Adam Zagoria reported 4 schools that he's supposedly going to visit. Rutgers is not on that list. That list includes St. John's, Rick Pitino, Indiana, Kansas, and I'll have to look up the 4th here because I'm, of course, and then Louisville. Louisville's not surprising at all. Nolan Smith, former assistant at Duke, at Louisville now. So Kenny Payne, head coach at Louisville. Louisville was terrible last year, but their Nike relationships there. Mgbako's got Nike relationships from high school, so I just think an AAU playing on the EYBL. So I don't think Rutgers has a very good shot here. No, I think doesn't hurt that there was national perception this week of the rumor going around at EYBL that they were involved. Credit to Richie Schneiderite and Mike Broadbent at Rivals, the Night Report for kind of breaking that story. But I think this goes back to what I hope fans can take from me talking right now is that you have to approach this is wilder than the Wild West in terms of the way college basketball recruiting is right now with the portal, with NIL. Things are changing so rapidly. And, sometimes it's just, there's so many factors involved. And it's not simply as, Steve Peichel is building a great culture. Rutgers has an NIL, which I do believe they do, was outside of the Knights Society and Knights of the Raritan. I do think that they're a player in that regard in certain cases. But no, Rutgers isn't going to compete right now. Again, I mean, St. John's has the guy from Vitamin Water. Louisville has huge backing. Kansas, we're talking about. So while the thought was great, I don't think Mgbako is coming to Rutgers. You can never say never. And like I said, Peichel's got great relationships with his high school coaches, but I just don't think that that's going to be the difference here. So, just in terms of how Rutgers is going to go about building the 2023-24 roster, I think Mgbako is probably not going to be a realistic option. Now you have Papa Conte, very, very, very good friends with Gavin Griffiths, very close to his family. Recently got released from his letter of intent with Michigan. Reported back on the last podcast, it was reported as an admissions issue. I don't expect that to be an issue for him at most schools, including Rutgers. Michigan, for whatever reason, has a much higher standard for the it's not ESL, but it's the TOEFL, TOEFL, the test of English as a foreign language. So anyway, is Rutgers involved? I don't think that you can count Rutgers 100% out just because of the relationship with Gavin Griffiths, but it does sound like, again, this is trending elsewhere. The SEC reportedly is involved. And Conte might just be a kid that wants to try something different, go to a national brand, and he has that opportunity. More power to him. But I put it this way. I think that there's a chance with Conte more than Mgbako, but I think that, the talented four-star big man is probably going to go elsewhere. So would it be disappointing to miss on Ndongo, Mgbako, and Conte? Yes. That's 2 4-stars and a 5-star. That being said, I really do think there's value just even being in the mix on all three because Rutgers is just being talked about more and more and more in the national conversation on the recruiting trail. All that being said, how is Steve Peichel going to go about building the roster now for 2023? They were counting on Ndongo. That's not going to happen yet. Again, he's going to be a freshman. So how much of a role is he going to play? I think what we could take comfort in is that who we know is returning, which I want to get into, because there is a solid core confirmed. And I didn't even honestly realize that this was much of a question, but Cam Spencer, yes, he's definitely coming back. I confirmed that with the program yesterday when it was raised on Twitter, and he hadn't announced his return. It's kind of funny now, if players don't announce they're returning, there's questions now on whether they're coming back. But Cam Spencer's not even on social media, but he's back. He's back for sure. Derek Simpson's back. And then in addition to the backcourt, they added Noah Fernandez a couple weeks ago, transferred from UMass. That's a really encouraging, strong 3 in the backcourt. Then you have JaMychal Davis expected to sign. So that's the 4 in the backcourt there. Then on the wing, this week was announced Andre Hyatt is returning. I think that kind of maybe got underappreciated a little bit. Listen, he was trending as I think inarguably the second best sixth man in the Big Ten for a while. And I even made the argument at the time that he was the best sixth man. He struggled at the end. I think when Mag went down, Hyatt was forced into certain things that, wasn't his strong suit and played more minutes. And I think he's very, very valuable as a sixth man, first or second guy off the bench. He can provide scoring punch. He can provide defense. He can provide rebounding. But I think he's best suited in that role. I don't think he's best suited as a Big Ten starter. That's no disrespect to him. I just think in 20 minutes off the bench, giving the team a spark, he's a valuable key to that. So him returning, I think, is huge, especially because on the wing right now, I mean, other than Hyatt, you have Antonio Chol, who's a project. I think he's got high upside. The staff really believes in him. He had a year to basically develop, or will have a year by the time next season starts, in the program. So that's going to be huge. And then you have Gavin Griffiths, who's huge, a very high ceiling, arguably the best shooter in the 2023 class, but he will be a freshman. He needs to bulk up. Defensively, we're not going to be quite sure where he's at when he comes in, but, incredibly talented offensive player who's going to play a lot of minutes. But having Hyatt provide stability with Griffiths. So that's huge. So that's five guys right there. You have Cam Spencer, Derek Simpson, Noah Fernandez, Andre Hyatt, Gavin Griffiths. Not bad in terms of a core. Then the front court, we know for sure Antoine Woolfolk is going to return. And you have Mawot Mag. The question mark with Mag is, when will he be healthy? When will he be full activities? And when will he be able to work back into the rotation? Will it be before the season opener? Will it be, in November sometime? Kind of similarly to how Caleb McConnell worked his way in after 5 games last season. And then Paul Mulcahy had the injury after 3 games and then worked his way back. Is it going to be in December once Rutgers is in their high major schedule, or with the 2 Big Ten games and then also their non-conference kind of hard portion? It's always like that, first couple weeks of December, possibly 3 weeks, leading up to Christmas, where the schedule really ramps up. Or is it going to be in January when Big Ten play resumes full time? We don't know with Mag. We know Wolf showed signs and showed flashes, but in terms of those 9 right now, I really like that 9. I think you can, to various degrees, count on those first 5 that I mentioned in terms of Cam Spencer, Noah Fernandez, Derek Simpson, Andre Hyatt, Gavin Griffiths, in terms of being 5 members of the team that are going to be part of the core group next season. So that's comforting. Then you have Wolf and Mag, who I believe will also be part of that core group. How much development Derek Simpson and Antoine Woolfolk make is hugely important to the success of the team next season. The health of Mag and his development back from that injury is hugely important. So those are, question marks to a degree, but we know that those players are going to be contributors. That brings it full circle, and then Chol and Davis, potentially could be contributors, but I think they can't be counted on at this moment to be key contributors next season. That leaves us to 2 big question marks. Cliff Omori and Paul Mulcahy have entered the draft evaluation process, have until, and I apologize, I misspoke previously. I mentioned June 12th as the early entrant withdrawal deadline. That is not the case. That's actually for international players. It's May 31st. So May 31st, which is a little more than a month away, at midnight is the deadline for early entrants to withdraw for the NBA draft to maintain their eligibility for next season. So let's start with Cliff. Another rumor going around reported that he potentially, or I think it was even said anyway, it's taken off that he very well likely could go overseas to play professionally. So this is where I want to apply logic specifically to this notion. And again, I would say this: anything is possible. And it's too early to know what Cliff's ultimately going to decide. He could decide to stay in the draft. He could end up being picked in the second round. He could end up going undrafted like Ron Harper Jr. did and then sign a two-way deal with a team where basically that gives, certain it's a better deal than being an unrestricted free agent. It basically is a year commitment to play either in the G League and be kind of brought up from time to time the way Ron Harper Jr. was. Who made the most of his opportunity, by the way, which was great to see. Props to Ron Harper Jr. And really excited to see what he can do next season. Hoping to have him back on the podcast soon. But I digress. Cliff Omoruyi, the idea that he's leaning towards playing overseas, I don't know anything for sure, but I think if you look at logic and reason, that doesn't make sense. First off, because we know for a fact his dream is to be drafted and play in the NBA. He told me as such in October, when I was at Media Day and interviewed him. It was one of the first things he said, and he said it multiple times. And he's told many people that, and he even put that on social media before the season. So he's been working out full time. The draft evaluation process has not begun yet. Team workouts have not begun. The G League and NBA draft combine doesn't happen until the second and third week of May. So he doesn't even know where he stands yet. So the idea that he's leaning towards going overseas, I just don't believe it. Could he ultimately decide that rather than return to Rutgers, he could go overseas and play professionally? Maybe he does have some offers on the table already. That is possible. But I don't think that he's made any type of decision or leaning towards doing that simply because he's got to let the NBA draft evaluation process play out. What if it comes back that he's projected as a early second round pick? It's possible. Maybe teams will tell him that. Is he still going to be leaning to go overseas then? No. At the end of the day, he wants to be in the NBA. Can he get there? I hope so. Do I think at this moment that he's going to get drafted in the first or second round? I honestly don't, and that's not any disrespect towards him. It's just in terms of the players available, his skill set, what I personally think he needs to work on. I think the feedback will be that, he's got a lot of potential and there's certain things he's got to work on. He's got to develop better offensively. He's super talented, super athletic. But offensively, his skills, he really needs to develop more, I think, to have a real shot at being a long-term NBA contributor. And that's just me being honest. So that all being said, the feedback could very well be that, the best thing for you is to go back to Rutgers and work on your game and take another year of your development. He actually has 2 years of college eligibility remaining. No, I don't think that that's going to happen, but I do think that it's, realistic. He could return next season. Very possible he won't. We don't know. But the idea of, I think today was a day where, fans have gotten super hyped with all the positive buzz with the 2024 class. Today, Thursday, April 27th, was a day that fans came crashing down with the news in Ndongo, with the news of Mgbako going the other way, and now the rumor of Cliff going overseas. So this was a big reason I was kind of fired up and wanted to do this episode and wanted to talk, because I really hope I can help some people maybe navigate this a little better or come off the ledge a little bit. But I think the Cliff decision, he has until May 31st. It's not close to being decided, and again, he might not come back to Rutgers, but he might. So how does that play into how the roster looks for next season? Obviously, if he returns, it's a huge boost for Rutgers. We know what he provides. He made the first team All Big Ten defensive team. He became a much better rim defender this past year. He's a extremely reliable rebounder. He is an athletic freak that when he moves in space is impossible to stop. Where he got hung up was posting up, and was double teamed, triple teamed was a target, and struggled to create high percentage shots for him, even though he was within 10 feet of the basket. So those are things he has to work on. But, he's going to have more offensive talent around him next season with Fernandes, with Griffiths, with Spencer, who I think will be even better. So I'm hoping that he comes back. And if he does, that's going to be a huge boost for Rutgers. And I think, you just bring him back alone. That's, an 8-man core, 6 really kind of proven guys back. You have to feel really good about Rutgers being a top half of the Big Ten team, I think, at this stage of the offseason. Very early still, but I would feel really good about saying that. If he doesn't come back, then the front court is a major concern, because with Wolf and Mag, you have 2 question marks to a degree. You have 2 high ceiling guys, but question marks, just in terms of Mag's health and how much Wolf can develop in year 2. So I think regardless, if Cliff comes back or not, and I tweeted this after or at some point on Thursday, it's time to go portaling for a big man, and I think Rutgers will do that. And I think they are doing that. I think they're already, who's the guy, Florida State, what's his name? I'm sorry for this, McLeod, the Florida State recruit, 7'4" big man. He was a JUCO guy first. He played for Florida State last year. They've been linked to him. I'm sure there's other guys they're pursuing. I think regardless, if Cliff comes back or not, you need another big. I really do think that, especially with Ndongo gone now. Not that Ndongo is a traditional 4, but I think you need another big man. And at this point, bringing in an experienced big man, you don't wait on that now. Now we're in a way, Ndongo leaving now opens the door to go out and get an experienced veteran big man now, whether Cliff comes back or not. Obviously, you're going to be a little bit hamstrung because you're going to have certain guys that want to know, that want 25 to 30 minutes of playing time, and you can't guarantee that knowing that Cliff may return. But there's going to be a certain needle that hopefully Pikiell can thread with veteran big men that are going to have a role no matter whether Cliff comes back or not. And, if you can get a guy that loves competition and wants to come in and compete and battle, then that's not really going to matter if Cliff comes back or not to a degree. So you go out and you get a big man from the portal now. And then if Cliff returns, you're in really good shape. If he doesn't return, you have kind of a safety net and having a veteran big man. And then you can explore what to do next, go get another big man. That's the beauty of the portal. And yes, some of the best options are gone already, but that's life. And, that's the navigation of the early entrant process with the NBA draft and how you have to kind of, Rutgers has to hold a spot for him. It's just reality. And of course you want them to, because if Cliff returns, that's better than most options that you could get out of the portal. And continuity wise, all that, and what, a known entity, what he brings to the culture of the program, he's a good student. He's a great member of the community. You want to bring Cliff back if he wants to come back. So you wait, and then you work around that. So Ndongo leaving, I think, opens the door. Now you go out and you definitely go get a big from the portal. Now we go to Paul Mulcahy. We don't know anything. It's been radio silence. Do I think he's going to go to the NBA? No. Could he ultimately decide to go overseas as his best option? He could. I think that, not to say that Cliff couldn't, but I think that Paul, if you told me which player would be seriously considering going overseas right now, I would say Paul over Cliff. I'm not saying that he has any intention of playing overseas. I'm not trying to start any rumors myself, but I think that, that could, from a professional perspective, I think Paul could play overseas and have a good career there. Does that start now? Does that start after next year? Only he knows that. Obviously the end of the season was really tough for him. Fans were really hard on him. He didn't play well. He was injured. He had a rough year. If he can come back, if he can reset his mind, if he can adapt to a new role off the ball more so, be more of a 3-point option, be almost like a point forward at times. I really think he'd be great to come back. And the fans that are saying, "Oh, I hope he doesn't come back," I'm just tired of that. Listen, okay, he has his faults, but he has his strengths too. And I'm really intrigued by how he could evolve into a new role for this team. So if Paul and Cliff come back, right, that would give them 11 scholarship players for next year, with 9 players that are going to play roles for sure, with Chol and Davis kind of in the back of the roster with high upside. If you just have those 11 alone, you've improved your talent, you've improved your depth, you've improved your ceiling as a team versus last year. I fully believe that. You still would have room to bring in a big man from the portal. That gives you 12. We know Pikel traditionally, likes to leave a spot open. He throws it to a scholarship, a walk-on, Aiden Terry most recently. I love that he does that. At the same time, I go back to competition. I wrote this about football with the spring game and how decisions being made immediately after internally are fine, but, to announce it publicly, Rutgers football has to get better because they have to be more competitive within their position battles. Same for Rutgers. Rutgers has to have a more competitive roster. There's been more, I think, and this is not a fault of Pikel, but just the way the roster's been constructed in the past, there's been a very clear delineation of roles and kind of who's in the rotation and who's at the back. And, I think a more wide open, competitive environment would benefit this team and help move them forward. And I think that is one thing that if Cliff and Paul or one of them does not come back, you're filling them with newcomers that are going to bring, hopefully, that competitive edge, and it's going to create a more competitive environment. Now, I do think with Cliff and Paul coming back, you could still have that because you have newcomers coming in and you add another guy from the portal. So you could still have that. But I think as a whole, I hope that the coaching staff is approaching kind of that philosophy and how they're going into next season, this off season. And, I think there's roles up for grabs, even with the returners. Nothing's guaranteed. And, no one's should assume that Wolf is going to ascend into a 25-minute player. Andre Hyatt isn't guaranteed anything. Paul Mulcahy is not going to be guaranteed anything based on the way the roster's already started to be reconstructed. So obviously I think he's going to have a big role, but it's going to be different for sure. So it's going to be fascinating to see what happens. Recruiting changes every day. You're going to hear more rumors. My whole message here is stay grounded, stay level. Obviously it's hard to stay level when the highs are there, the Mgbako tie, the way things are trending right now with 2024, with Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey. Ace Bailey is committed. Delquan Warren is committed. Last week, Lathan Somerville, four-star big man, father went to Bradley. So you have Somerville, who recently moved into the top 100, 92 with 24/7 Sports, 90 on ESPN. Delquan Warren's in the 50 and 60 range. Then you have Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper. Dylan Harper's not committed yet, but I do think that things are looking rather good, especially the way Bailey's recruiting him. Those two guys are in the top 5. So the 2024 class is a dream right now. The goal is to get to November, when early signing period. If you get all 4 of those guys to sign, we won't have to worry in the way we worried about Ndongo signing late, which was no fault of anybody. It's just how this recruiting process went. So, yes, so much to be excited about with 2024. But that doesn't mean a day like today, when bad news happened, multiple rumors kind of on the negative side, you can't panic. You got to stay level. Things are trending up with this program. It's fair to be emotional. The rollback to the way things used to be, the Rutgers panic. I get it. I get part of it too. I feel it sometimes for sure, but let's trust Steve Pikel. Let's trust his coaching staff. The roster reconstruction for 23-24 is in flux. It's exciting. It's nerve-wracking, but let's have confidence that they're going to figure it out. And stay tuned. Stay tuned is all I could say. I'm really excited to see who they can get out of the portal as a big man. I really think, especially with with next year, you can have a youth movement. But maybe they find a guy that has 2 years eligibility that can be part of the team next year that will help counter that balance. You know, when you lose some veterans like Cam Spencer, Noah Fernandez, probably, you know, if Cliff does return, you'll lose him, Paul Mulcahy. They're going to lose a lot of veterans. If they could find a quality big man who could serve a certain role this year that could, you know, have the opportunity to play bigger minutes next year, even if Cliff does return, or play a bigger role if Cliff does not return, has 2 years eligible, I think that would be a huge get. And I think it's possible. So we'll see what happens. I've talked a lot. I hope you found value in this. I appreciate everyone listening. I'm sorry I had a couple moments of my brain not working properly, but keep the faith. This program is moving forward. There's a lot of exciting things happening. You're not going to win them all, and you're going to have setbacks. And today, you know, there were some things that came out that were disappointing, but it's going to be part of the recruiting process. It's going to be part of the NIL world. It's going to be part of the transfer portal, and we move forward. And I'm very excited about how Rutgers basketball is moving forward, even after today. And we go from there. So thank you so much for listening once again. Follow all my coverage at thescarletfaithful.com. I'm on YouTube at Aaron Breitman, podcasts wherever you find your podcast. And also on Twitter, you know, if you want kind of my immediate reactions to things or kind of certain things I'm throwing out there, Aaron_Breitman, and also our fan forum on thescarletfaithful.com. I'm putting stuff on there now that I'm not putting in article form. So check it out. Thanks for your support, and talk to you soon.